All right, welcome. We are about to walk through a workflow that can really fundamentally change your security integration business. This is all about operational excellence and, more importantly, how to hit that magic number, a consistent 40% project margin.
So let's start with a question, one that probably hits a little too close to home. Are you just tired of watching your project margins completely evaporate? You know that feeling, right? The last-minute chaos, the sudden compliance failures, those super costly return trips, they all turn what should have been a profitable job into a total financial drain.
And really, this is the choice every single integrator faces, whether you realize it or not. You've got one path, the old, reactive, chaotic way that just eats your profit for lunch, and then you've got the other, a structured, proactive system that is a direct path to profitability. So let's dive in and figure out how we build that system.
Okay, here's our roadmap for the next few minutes. We're going to follow the entire life cycle of a high-margin project. We'll start with how you price it, then move through compliance and engineering, and wrap up with how you turn that one project into a lasting, profitable partnership.
So first up, we're pricing for true profit. And this all begins way before you even think about submitting a bid. It starts by getting a rock-solid understanding of your single biggest and most often miscalculated cost, your labor. Now, this is a critical shift in how you need to think. You have to move past just looking at someone's base wage. The fully burdened labor rate is the only way to actually price for real profit because it accounts for everything. We're talking payroll taxes, insurance, benefits, and yeah, even that technician slice of the office rent.
And look, this isn't just guesswork. It's a super simple, repeatable four-step formula. You gather up all your direct and indirect costs, figure out the realistic number of billable hours, not that fantasy 2,080 hours you hope for, and then you divide. That gives you the actual number you need to build a profitable bid.
You know, if that formula seems like a bit of work, this number right here should snap things into focus. 44%. That's not me talking, that's from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. That's how much extra the labor burden adds on top of base wages in this industry. So think about it. If you're only using base pay to bid a job, you're underestimating your true labor cost by almost half right from the start. It's a disaster waiting to happen. Okay, let's build on that solid foundation with our second section, the compliance shield. Because look, in today's world, a security integrator isn't just an installer anymore. You are, for all intents and purposes, a compliance officer for your client.
So Section 889 of the National Defense Authorization Act, it flat out prohibits using equipment from these so-called covered entities on any federal project. And that means your bill of materials has to be scrubbed completely clean of these names. And that includes their many, many OEM rebrands.
And this chart, it points out a really critical distinction. Being NDAA compliant is not the same thing as being TAA, or Trade Agreements Act, compliant. TAA is all about the country of origin. So a camera might be NDA compliant because it's not made by a banned company. But if it was put together in a non-designated country like China, well, it's not TAA compliant. You absolutely have to know the difference for the project you're bidding. This right here is what we call the chipset trap. You see, a ton of camera makers have used prohibited high silicon chips, which are made by a subsidiary of Huawei. So the brand on the box might look totally fine, but the silicon on the inside makes it illegal for a compliant job. That's why this verification step, requesting a certificate of origin, is absolutely non-negotiable.
All right, let's get into the technical stuff and talk about the physics traps that cause those nagging, intermittent, margin-killing service calls that are just so hard to pin down.
We all know power over Ethernet has a theoretical limit of 100 meters, right? But that's definitely not the whole story. As you can see, as the power draw goes up from standard PoE to high-power 802.3 BT, the demand on your cable just skyrockets. For those high-draw devices, voltage drop can actually cripple the equipment long before you even get close to that 100-meter mark. The cable you choose is beyond critical.
And hey, while we're talking about cable, let's be crystal clear about this. Using copper-clad aluminum, or CCA, on any PoE job is a catastrophic engineering failure, period. Its high resistance generates a ton of heat, it starves your devices of power, and it's a known fire hazard. It's banned by industry standards for a reason. Just don't do it. Okay, time for another quick physics lesson. Gate motors. When a motor kicks on, it draws this massive spike of current just to get moving. We call that inrush current, and it can be 5 to 8 times the normal operating current. If your circuit protection isn't sized to handle that super brief, intense spike, your system is going to fail.
And this is exactly why you can't just throw standard, fast-acting fuses on a motor circuit.
They'll just cause these annoying nuisance trips every single time the gate tries to open. You have to use protective devices like time delay fuses or inverse time breakers. They're specifically designed to handle the thermal stress of a motor start.
Let's move on to the execution phase. This is where all that careful prep work in the shop completely eliminates those costly, unbillable hours you spend configuring gear while you're standing on top of a ladder.
This is the core principle of being ready for the field. The 72-hour staging protocol makes sure that everything, from your NVRs to your cameras to your switches, is updated, configured, and labeled before it even gets loaded onto the truck. Trust me, every minute you spend at the bench is a minute you save at the client's site.
Now at the end of the project, you hand over the golden folder. This isn't just a bunch of random paperwork. This is your comprehensive, professional handover package. It's got the as-built drawings, device schedules with every single IP and MAC address, and, this is crucial, photos of every camera's field of view that the client has signed off on.
But the single most important document in that whole folder is the signed acceptance form. If you remember one thing, remember this. That signature officially transfers responsibility for the system to the owner. It starts the warranty clock, and it's the trigger that lets you send your final invoice. Whatever you do, do not leave that site without it.
And that brings us to our final step, which is really the payoff. This is how you take a successful one-time project and turn it into a profitable long-term relationship built on recurring revenue.
The strategy itself is pretty simple. It's a three-tiered service model. But the timing is everything. You present these options during the system training, which is the exact moment of your client's highest satisfaction. It's the absolute perfect opportunity to convert that project success into a recurring monthly revenue stream.
So at the end of the day, the question this whole process asks is pretty simple. What kind of business do you want to be? Following a disciplined workflow like this transforms you from just another installer doing transactions into an elite, trusted security partner. One is capable of delivering excellence and capturing that 40% margin you absolutely deserve.